Welcome to my series based on Zentangle's Bijou Be Well, done in May 2025. Each day, Zentangle put out a video featuring one pattern, and the design was meant to be drawn in a short amount of time, so you could just take a little time for yourself and kind of get yourself centered. I encourage you to go visit their YouTube channel. I'll have the link down in the comments, and you could see how they did their designs. This series is meant to walk you through how to draw each design, and then also to give you some alternative ideas for embellishments and ways to kind of zhuzh up that pattern. This video covers Cadent. For all cards in this series, I used the same tools, so you will see in every single video in this series a blue Micron 05 pen, a General's Indigo blue chalk pastel pencil, an 8B graphite pencil, two Tortillons, so one for blue, one for black, and white tiles. And of course, that's my trusty little pencil sharpener there as well. If you followed along with the Zentangle series, you will notice that they also include a white pencil and a Tortillon for that. I chose to not use those for my series because I'm using a white tile, and I find that the white chalk pastel pencil really doesn't add very much to the design. Take a moment to gather your tools, get yourself centered, make sure you're sitting comfortably in your chair. When you're ready, let's begin. We begin with a pencil string line that is a seed shape going diagonally from corner to corner. And when you get done with this, you can put down your pencil and pick up your pen. The first thing we're going to do is put a series of random orbs all over our seed shape. Some of them can be slightly bigger, some of them can be small. We're not going to really worry about lining them up, but we do want to leave some space in between them because things are going to happen between these orbs. So the goal here is to put a nice assortment of orbs throughout the seed shape so we have the basis of our pattern. Next, pick a pair of orbs in the middle of your seed and connect them by drawing an S shape that starts at the top of one orb and curves around to the bottom of the neighbor. The one that you just left off with, turn your card and connect it to the one that's closest to it. Turn your card, do it again. You're just going to keep turning your card and doing this S shape. And then finally you will turn your card one more time and complete this set. So we're thinking of this like a box where those orbs are the corners and these curvy S lines are the sides. In this case, I'm just going to continue on with the next set of orbs that are right next door. And I'm going to do all of the full sets that I can. In other words, I'm going to make as many of these odd little shaped boxes as I can, and then I'm going to worry about the edges. So eventually what's going to happen here is we'll want to make some partials kind of going into the string, as if this pattern would keep going if that string were not in the way. But to start, let's go with doing full boxes first so we can see how this is all going to lay out and whether we need to add any more orbs or not to even things out. Once you've got all the boxes done that you can do, take a look and see if you have any gaps. In this case, I have a bit of a gap that I feel like I could create another box with. It's going to be a little squished, but I did not want to just do a partial in this spot. So I added two more orbs in, and you may find that you have a few places that you'll need to do this. Now that you've filled in all the bigger gaps, you're going to go around and do some partials. I tend to kind of just work my way around my string there. And just imagine what it would look like if there were 2 more orbs that you needed to connect to, and start the line going towards that space. So sometimes you're thinking about like most of a square, and sometimes you're just looking at maybe just one side. And just keep working your way around. If something doesn't look right, go back and see if you need to draw another little partial line. I tend to, as I'm doing this, think I get them all and then realize I miss 1 or 2. So I keep my pen handy even after I think I'm done doing the ink work when I do this pattern, just so I can quickly put another line in if I find that there's something missing. So next we're going to embellish these orbs. I'm going to put a smaller orb in the middle of the ones that I can put one in. And then I'm going to fill in around that little orb. So I end up with a little white dot in the middle of the bigger orb. If it's a smaller one, you might end up having to just fill it in all the way, or you might just thicken the line of the orb so that you still end up with a bit of that white space in the middle. Let's embellish those boxes. So using a similar S shape as we did from the beginning, we're going to connect those orbs one more time. So starting at the top orb and going to the bottom orb and creating a bit of an S shape. That shape is going to stray inside of the box. So we're creating not quite an aura or a parallel line for the side of the Cadent box, but it does thicken the line. And it almost looks like a ribbon when you're done. And the way I do this is I kind of just work my way down a row instead of thinking in terms of boxes now. I'm just working down a relative row of orbs. If you find that as you're drawing the line, you have a couple orbs that are kind of piled on top of each other, you can always do the draw behind trick, which means you just pick up your pen and come out the other side. And you can put down your pen and pick up either your chalk pastel or your graphite pencil. We're going to put pencil in the corners and around the edges of each box. We're not going to fill in the middle. Originally, when I started this design, I had it in my head that I was going to do this more like a checkerboard, and it didn't actually work out. So you're seeing here in the video that I'm kind of working every other, and it worked for a while until it didn't. So I'm doing these a little out of order, but depending on how wonky your squares ended up being, you might be able to make a checkerboard out of this. And if you can, that would probably be pretty cool looking. And right here is why I keep a pen handy. So as I'm coloring, I realized I missed a couple of those little embellishment lines. So I had my pen right there. I was able to just grab it and fill in the ones that I missed. Next, I'm going to grab my Tortillon and blend out the pencil. So I am starting by keeping the pencil, whether it's the chalk pastel or the graphite, close to the lines. And then I pull it a ways into the square, but I'm trying not to fill in the middle of the square. So it ends up being a gradient where it's darker at the edges of the square and then light, if not completely white, in the very middle of the square. Next, I'm going to grab my graphite pencil. Even if you started with graphite, you could still do this step. I'm going to add a little bit of graphite where the curvy lines meet the orb. So like the little shadow that would be cast as they wrap into those orbs. That's what we're trying to kind of emphasize here. It's just a very, very small amount of graphite on those little white S-shaped lines. And I'm not going to go very far from the orb either. I want to keep most of that line set white. And then next I will grab my Tortillon and blend those little spots out, keeping the graphite very, very close to the orb. I'm not going to pull it very far away. So that way we have a nice deep shadow that's cast as the little ribbon shapes wrap into the orb, but then the middle of the ribbon is still white. So you have a nice contrasting highlight. For a finishing touch, I'm going to grab my graphite pencil one more time and put a little bit of graphite around the outside edge, pretty much following the string line that I started with. I'm going to use this to clean up any stray lines, or as I was doing, like the blue shading, if there's some blue that kind of sticks out a little bit. This will just blend it all in and finish things out. Then I'm going to grab my Tortillon and blend that out. I'm keeping the graphite very, very close to the pattern, and if anything, I might be putting it up onto the pattern a little bit. I don't want to bring this too far out onto the card. And when you're done, take a moment and admire the pattern that you created. And when you're ready, grab your pen and add your chop to your design. And there you have it, Cadent.